we approach them and say we would try to approach you, that just residents of the town of Weston? Sorry,
And we have a meeting every month
everybody's invited.
in the Brook School, you know, they don't have to walk far to come to it. You saw
What's
what
the
times
rush
was this
of
morning.
getting it done now? Why can't we wait a few years? Why can't we talk for a few years? What's the rush?
Primary reason that we're moving forward is because as Susan mentioned earlier, this has been a real uptick over the past couple of years in this. And the more time we delay in doing this, the more open we are to having developers moving in different places.
Yeah, but we're doing a hostile takeover of Brook School right now. I mean, what is the rush?
We have two members of the LD Housing Committee sitting at this table. So I'm not sure why we consider this hostile. These folks are
Because
here
everybody
representing
seems
the
to be
LD Housing.
upset.
Could I,
Yes.
we were gonna do 10, 20 minutes for public comments. A lot of what's being asked is in the bulk of our meeting. Can we, if it's all right with everybody in the audience, close it up so we can get on with the meeting, so we can discuss what you want to hear us discuss? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, meeting minutes. Meeting minutes of October 10th.
Those went out to everybody. Does
Yep.
anybody have any?
Any comments?
Comments or revisions?
Do you have any extra copies?
These are drafts and not posted yet. If they approve them, they'll be on the website tomorrow. This is from the last meeting.
Wait, Susan made comments on these, those?
Those are comments on the article, they're not comments on the article.
Well, the article and the minutes.
They're similar, yeah, there is difference. Any comments on the meeting notes from last week? No? Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
To approve?
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next order of business, we've had a couple of information requests. This is just kind of a housekeeping item. Information requests for meeting minutes and agendas, not posted on the website. Unfortunately, when Betsy Ware, the town planner, left the employee of the town, there were a few meeting minutes that she had not gotten to, so we have been able to get her notes. This is transcribed the notes. So the meeting minutes are up to date,
Except for one.
more or less. We have one meeting that's still missing, which is being transcribed, and it will be up on the website as soon as we get a chance to get that done. So we're closing that out. All the agendas were posted, and I will let everybody know, because of the change also in the new Weston website, there was some confusion about which website was active and where they were posted. I know last week and a couple of weeks ago, we had a couple of folks in town say that we didn't post agendas for meetings, we couldn't have public meetings, however, they were posted on the new website. And unfortunately, when that person went to the same link they always go to, it took them to the old website, and we weren't updating it, so the old website is now down, the new website is up, it's up to speed, so all those items should be taken care of, or supposed to be taken care of as we speak.
And I'll be sure that the Union Street Studio sketches and plans are also on the website for meeting notes.
Right.
Will there also be elevations and not just for?
Only the ones we haven't done elevations.
They haven't,
but
they
they're
haven't
not-
done any more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't done it.
They're not designed to test fits.
Right, but everything in terms of properties that you're looking into will be posted?
Everything we have for
Properties,
drawings.
Anything to this fidelity of thinking? If you
Yes.
have it, it'll be
Yeah.
posted?
some
If we
yes,
have
some
it-
yes, some no.
We'll get to that in the rest of the agenda.
Because it's a process, we just haven't gotten to that point. So that's the email request. I assume everybody's clear on the email request. And I did notify Donna that Hugh is out of town for a couple of weeks, so we don't know about what his status is as far as emails, but that's not something we need to be concerned about.
Well, I did talk to Donna today about the email request, and she said that it is important that we make every effort to be as complete as possible, as soon as possible, but it is not necessary to be complete by any specific date.
The original request was during the 19th.
That's
Okay.
right.
I wipe my server clean.
Thanks, Hillary.
Would you throw your phone away too?
No.
We'll
Epic
put the
Flow District.
FBI on.
Yeah. The pub-
I had an item in here which running late for the financial model. I don't think we've really done much with that yet, Jack.
We need to sit down.
You want to pass over that for this evening?
Wait a second.
No, no.
It's on the
not-
agenda. We have a whole group here. I was at a meeting this morning where it was discussed.
Okay.
So,
What,
The financial pro forma?
yes,
which meeting was that?
I was at the elderly housing meeting
Ah,
this morning.
okay.
We discussed the fact that there was one, but we did not go into any details about what the conclusions of the model were. I do believe that a careful look at the pro forma for a 40-unit facility at the Brook School is extremely important, and I have difficulty understanding how it could work. I would just simply say that.
It doesn't work, it doesn't look like it works for 40 units.
So we have work to do, so make that work. I mean, the other discussion we're having is private, the possibility of getting a private.
Can you clarify what you mean by it doesn't work? So in what way doesn't it work?
At the end of the 20-year period, when you would nominally have expected to pay the debt service off and have the facility free and clear and operating in a way that the Brook School, for example, currently does, I can't see how to make it so that you're not tens of millions of dollars in the red.
Which we won't, which we can't promote and do. This is one of the things. As far as having a warrant article for the town meeting, that had, the warrant article closed over a month ago. A decision had to be made about what to put up into the warrant if we expected to move this process forward. Decision was made to go to Brook School. We have a lot of work, as I said, left to do. And we have, issues to cover to make sure that that is a viable solution. Part of the other discussion we still need to have, or continue to have, is whether we try to solicit proposals from private development companies who own and operate facilities such as Brook School, and see if there's any interest in an economic way that they can make that work, rather than us trying to make that work.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Because Karen, our consultant for the HPP, has been very vocal about it. She says, Weston is unique in their approach to affordable housing. She said, we are the only town she knows of in the Commonwealth that basically supports and pays for affordable housing. It does not use a private developer. So the standard way of dealing with the money and the construction and the management is to go to an outside developer. So we're not breaking any new ground. One of the things we're talking about is that any municipal land is leased, so that we have complete control of setbacks, of building materials, of height restrictions, all the rest of that. So for us not to bear the burden is the normal way for a town to approach this.
It's difficult to understand how a private developer could do it any more cost effectively than town of Weston can do it, because we can borrow money as much more cheaply than private developer. And, there's some construction costs that might be tad high.
We had some initial discussions with some developers, and they were very interested in working in Weston on a project like this. They thought the size was good. They had no problem with being able to support their profit and also continue on with the management. I think one of the things we need to do, we have 2 developers we're thinking of bringing in next week, if we can get a hold of them. At that point, we can have a useful discussion.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. No, actually, next week is our normal
We're
week.
off schedule.
This is our off schedule. This is trying to make up for the delay of last time. So we're hoping to get them in a week so that we can have a real discussion about what it means as far as cost.
Get them here to the meeting?
Beg pardon?
To the
What
meeting?
development are you talking
Yes.
about?
Beg pardon?
Brook
Thank
School.
you, yes.
Well,
Brook
the-
School or all of them, all the ones that you've considered?
Any and all, including Brook School, but any and all of the others also. We're looking to be able to understand how to put together a private public development with an outside developer that will work within our rules and find out where the economic balance points are, so we can get a better understanding of what the opportunities would have to be to basically attract somebody to want to do this with us. if it's not an economic benefit to them, they're not gonna want to do the work with us, so.
Well, what if the price that they would have to charge in rent is much higher to make money than what we currently charge to the people that are at Brook School? Like, would then everybody's costs go up?
Well, it's no longer affordable.
Right, in order to be affordable, it has to meet certain
Well, only certain
limitations.
amounts of it is affordable, it's all affordable.
It's a
20%.
possibility.
Right,
It could be
so-
all affordable, it could be partially affordable.
20%.
Right, so I think that there's a real risk to some of the seniors that are here now, that their expenses are gonna go up.
But again, these are all
That's part of the
comments we haven't
discussion
vetted
for
out
us
yet
to
with the
understand.
developer.
Right.
So we don't know. That's why we want the developer here.
Would the town consider, I mean, is it possible that the town considers paying the difference in rent for the tenants? And that becomes a subsidy that would make it attractive to the developer? I mean, is that what you guys are thinking? That,
We haven't,
We
that's
don't-
way down the road.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
not our
any-
decision anyway.
so that means
Yeah.
that, so the taxpayers would,
But we don't know if the developer would require this.
okay.
That's why we have to have the discussion. I think what Jimmy said, it's a process. We're
So, but-
finding out as we go.
Mario, I think we would not become a sort of Section 8 provider, but what we could possibly do is use CPA funds to be a cost subsidy. I don't think it makes sense, I personally don't think it makes sense to lock yourself into subsidizing the rents. That can't be CPA funds because it's ongoing, and then it's just taxpayers. At least in the case of the CPA, we have set it aside for these specific purposes because we believe that will improve the quality of life in our town. And so the subsidy would more likely be an upfront cost underwriting than an ongoing operational underwriting.
But so are you saying that if the financial model doesn't work, then it gets taken off the table for the future? Or are we just gonna keep working on it until the financial model works?
Or are you thinking by increasing the number of units, your scaling is gonna make it?
No.
This is
No,
one of these
no,
cases,
makes it worse.
unfortunately, where you
No, no.
can't lose a little on each apartment and make it up in volume. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't.
And I think the point is that when you look at the Brook School financial model, it's kind of unique and kind of special, and it's not scalable, and it's not redoable. And because it was made possible by a significant infusion of CPA funds, which at the $6 million level, which is what Building D was, is possible. And we're talking about the $15 million level, which is roughly what 24 or 40 unit facility that would be added on to Brook School is. It's just not, that's not. And we can't subsidize 40 units. If you start running the numbers of monthly rent times 40 times 20, it just doesn't work.
What is the rent there? What is the range?
Typical rent at the Brook School is $1,500 or $1,600.
And that's like a one
One
bedroom?
bedroom, 700 square foot.
And that's a portion of which is paid by the feds for the subsidized portion of it?
For the Section 8.
If there's Section 8 supported, what the Section 8 apartments get is about $1,000 a month from the feds. And then the apartment renters make up the difference between that and the market rate. So if they-
What are the limits on, how do you set the price, the 15, 1600, whatever? How is that set?
So
It's based on a survey, market survey for what rents of that kind of apartment would go for in the area.
And it has to be approved by HUD.
For the Section 8?
Yeah, and we need to live by the rent requirements set by the state for affordable housing units. That's established by the area median income and is formula driven, and we have no capacity to increase those rents above what the maximum is. I think it's 28% of the average median income of the family would be in that.
Well, again,
That's all we can try.
the issue is you can have a certain number of affordable units, and you can have a certain number of market rate units. You can have, just like you can have one bedroom, two bedroom, and three bedroom units. And then the question is, what do you charge for them? And to the point of, do the rents have to go up in order to make a facility affordable? The answer is yes.
Do you have any sort of requirement that the tenants have a connection with Weston, have lived in the town, or have family in Weston?
In building D.
Well, we can have 70%, depends on the construction, but yes.
Yes, any proposed new construction, we're allowed to give local preference to up to 70% of the applicants. On the affordables, having a connection to the town in one way or another, whether they're residents or work here or whatever the situation may be.
And the current Brook School, over half of the residents have a Weston connection. They're all residents now.
Yeah, they're all residents now.
What about the 3-bedroom units that are proposed? Who do you envision those are?
These will be age restricted, and so they're limited to 1 and 2 bedroom.
We don't have to do 3 bedroom.
We don't have to do 3 bedroom, if we're age restricted. If we're not age
Because
restricted, we do.
this is an elderly, a senior housing.
Yeah, so we
It
won't.
is 62 and over,
Yes.
so this will not have families.
There
There
will
won't be
be-
mixed
You said
housing.
last
There will
time
not be
to-
3-bedroom units.
The
Right,
earlier-
because that's on the plan.
That plan is an earlier
That's an
plan.
early.
It's dated like 2 days ago.
I don't know how it was
You
dated.
see, chapter 40B requires a certain percentage of 3 bedrooms. So you can't just make the affordables 1 bedroom. But if it's dedicated for elderly, if the building is, then the requirement for 3 bedroom is removed. So in that early analysis, as we did on this site and others, it was looking at a 40B compliant development. And so we didn't say at that point in time that it was necessarily age restricted. At our last meeting,
The
we
last
said,
meeting.
Made a motion, yeah.
we said, you know, that the only way this makes sense there is to reduce the impact on the town, to reduce the school impact, to reduce the traffic impact, and to make it elderly owned.
Can I ask one other question about that? So if the financials aren't sort of compelling, and I understand that we have a need for elderly housing, but we also have a big issue with traffic and the scenic nature and the character of the town in that location. I've heard in some other meetings that there's a possibility of maybe by where the Biogen monster is, like are there other,
Yep.
like why wouldn't we start with that and not like right here where it's so, and work up to this?
This is
Great.
already one of the densest neighborhoods.
Great question. We've already approached the owners of Biogen. We don't own that, we can't control it, but we can ask that they work with us for a friendly development, and we've done that.
And Mark and I approached them, and Mark is a now retired architect who's worked with Boston Properties many times in the past, has a good relationship, and I happen to know the developer, the person who's in charge of the development in the region, and we met with them, and they're very interested in the possibility. You know, they have a sewage treatment plant for the building. The MBTA has said their long-term plan for the Fitchburg line is to have only one stop in Weston, because the whistle stops of Hastings and Silver Hill slow it down or whatever, don't have the demand,
Yeah,
don't have
that's their
parking.
biggest problem on the T.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, they're focusing all their
Yeah,
energy.
I know. I'm not defending them, I'm just describing there. So one of the thoughts was creating a larger station at, about where, if you've ever walked on the Central line, where it crosses the Fitchburg line, and it's off of Jones Road in Waltham.
Yes.
And Boston Properties owns both sides of the railroad there, both the Weston and the Waltham side. So we've talked to them about, more parking for a station if that happens, and transit-oriented housing there. But interestingly, Biogen has said we don't want traffic through our office area for residential, so they would bring in, the access would come from Jones Road. But it's likely that the building would be in Weston, so. You know, we're working on this, we don't know, I mean, that's,
Well, why don't
we have to
spend
do multiple things at
$150,000?
once.
Yeah, that's,
Exactly.
it's beautiful. I was driving through there today. It's perfect.
So like,
I absolutely agree. I
And those
mean,
big ponds.
I talked to them 7 years ago about this, and, but finally, they're listening.
so to Denise's point, why
Well, I
are we,
think-
why are we rushing to spend $150,000 on Brook School feasibility when everything you just described
Because
has the
this
least
is,
amount of impact on the community? And it sounds like we could be working with the developer, not having to foot the bill as taxpayers. I mean, what's the rush?
Because we don't know, because we don't control the property.
Exactly.
We've approached the developer with a request to consider this, and the town would look favorably on such a development addition. They have something like over 70 acres, and we think that there would be capacity to do something. Plus, they have all these workers on their property, particularly if you talk about the Clark headquarters, that's in Waltham, the transit component. It solves a lot of problems, but they're in the driver's seat. They need to evaluate it. Up until fairly recently, Boston Property was not involved in
Any residential.
in residential work. They just do office. They've recently begun to do some, particularly around North Station and other places, and they're willing to take a look at it. They think they've developed some expertise, but there's also a financial issue for them in addition. So they acknowledge that they're interested, that they would take a look at it, but we can't control
But wouldn't it be
their
good if
behavior.
we had a feasibility study that said the town is behind this, and here we're spending money to help partner with this?
We can't do a feasibility study on their land. I mean, they know what they want. I mean, they're
They
gonna
know what
look at.
their
We have
limits and
done all of that,
expectations are.
and I think what you have to look at this as is that we have to explore a number of different options, and there's a long way. If this isn't financially feasible, my reaction to Jack was, I'm gonna hold up the spending of the 150, because we better figure out if it works before we even decide, can it work physically? And as we do that evaluation of the physical feasibility, it will involve meetings that we have neighbors involved. This has gotta be a project that people say, okay, I think this works.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that what we're asking for is just to expand the study a little bit, not to build the project, because that would take a further decision by the town. So we're looking at different pieces in different ways.
But as we see it flowing now, it's one piece, one.
We just described one that we're looking at another way, which is the back 40.
But not for the $150,000.
Well, not
that
this
you're
hundred,
asking
not
us-
this
that you're
hundred.
asking us to vote for.
But not this, not, it's because we can't do that one for the reasons I just explained.
It's
If
just a
that's-
matter
if
of
that's level.
time. You just, what's the rush?
Because this one,
I mean, I know.
the town controls this property, the town can take a look at it and look at it carefully and see if it will work or not. At this point, we can't say that it'll work physically or financially. If we determine that it won't work either physically or financially, then we move on to other possibilities. And by the way, Biogen is not the only one that we're looking at. We're looking at a possibility, for example, of working on perhaps the Regis East property for a much smaller development than what was proposed before, for, again, perhaps age-restricted units. We've worked around what that might look like and what shape that development might take. Again, that's a property that we don't control, but we're trying to find properties that give us a start on establishing a plan that will then give the town the breathing room it needs to begin to work out how we build the units we need to build to keep the town in control of the process. So we haven't said yes or no on anything right now, but we felt we needed a little bit more money to evaluate further this one property while continuing to investigate others as well. Just because we're asking for a feasibility study amount doesn't mean we're going to build the project. But
I
that's,
just think this is the one that's gonna change the character of the town the most. Out of all of the ones that you're looking at, we already have a huge traffic problem there, but you're gonna add another light, and then we're gonna have more buildings, and then, you know, really what's gonna happen to the, you know.
we
that
need to
may-
look at that carefully. You're talking about it anecdotally. I live right around the corner. I know what the traffic situations are in that area. It's possible that it won't be feasible physically to do. But right now, it's too amorphous for us to say absolutely that it won't work or that it will work. We're looking for a little bit more funding to test out whether it's feasible. I don't know why doing that would
But
be.
why isn't the money being spent on evaluating the feasibility of a great number of projects of the sort that have been discussed tonight? Why this one?
We don't intend to stop looking at other possibilities.
I think we're objecting to the fact that there seems to be one lead candidate that you've all supported in the paper, that you all said you were unanimous about. It clearly has a lot of momentum. It only has a small number of neighbors, but whom it impacts very, very much.
Oh, I don't hear unanimity sitting here at this table.
No.
But the article
That's what
in
the
the
article
paper.
said.
Well, the articles may
said
say
that.
one thing or another, but
100%.
No, well, you guys wrote it, though.
Well,
You
there
guys
are,
wrote it.
there are some reasons why we are looking at the Brook School Apartments.
yes, there are.
It's already an existing larger building facility. It does have an infrastructure. And it is within walking distance of center, which is something 40Bs like. They like it to be, you know, in this sort of scenario. So it does have, and the site itself has space at the back of the site away from, you know, butters and neighbors. So it
That's
seems.
not true.
Which is currently used by the community for soccer and tennis.
Well, there's been
That's been-
discussion.
It says the site which the
Yeah.
community can all agree upon
Yeah.
is the Brooks School apartment campus.
And I mean, we
And it's
continue.
11 wet acres.
Yeah,
There are-
that's my question, as someone who
Yeah.
walks down there all the time, even the soccer field, a good part of the year is wet. I mean, that might have been
And
built
there's
up a lot.
a drinking source there.
Well,
There's
not even that, but it's,
Yeah, but it's for
that's
Cambridge.
wet.
But the corner of Maple and Wellesley Street has got to be one of the most accident-prone intersections in the town. And you're going to radically increase the amount of traffic on that very small road. I
On
don't.
Maple Street.
Yes.
On all of it.
You put a new road on the Maple
I
Street.
don't believe that well,
That's anecdotal. It's something we have to look at.
That's what your current plan shows.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
You could put it out to through 20 at least, but anyway.
And,
Oh.
please appreciate the fact that all the roads, and primarily I mean 30, 20, and 117, are abysmal every morning. And I know specifically about the north side of town, trying to get onto Route 117 to go east anytime before, 9:30 in the morning.
But it's not
It's
just
backed
Route
up.
20, it's Wellesley Street and School Street all the way.
all of Weston.
Let me
is a
finish,
customer.
please. So even if we put something on 117, it's not as though we're saying, gee, there's no traffic on Route 20, let's put it there. Every single one of them is completely stopped. It takes 20 minutes on the mornings to get from, back on 117 around Marion Street down to the Waltham line.
But would you put 40 units there? 80, or new units, that's the problem.
That's one of the things we're looking at, because, again, we have a list, I could get to the list, of all the municipal land. It depends on where the opportunities are. We have to assess each one, but we need to take a look at these and see which ones are viable. Putting 40 units on a half an acre of land is just not even feasible, so we're not gonna look at it. We're looking at larger pieces of property and where we may propose housing.
So maybe abutting the train tracks and near the station would be a very, very high priority then if it sounds like there's unanimity in this room about the traffic problem.
It is a high priority, but it's not the only possibility. And we have, again, what we're striving for is to identify how we can reasonably build the 250 units that we're talking about in different parts of the town and under different models in ways that impact the town as little as we can possibly do so. And it may be that Brooks School is not one of them. It may be that the back of the Biogen property will support enough units to almost get us over the finish line. We don't know that yet. We're trying to figure all that out, and we just need to have
Time to do that.
time and more information about the various sites. With this one, it happens to be a town property
It's controlled
for
by the town.
with some interesting advantages and disadvantages that we need to weigh factually as opposed to anecdotally. That's all we're saying.
And I think we've got a number of Brooks School neighbors here.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, I recommend, you're welcome to come and sit in my driveway beginning at 4:30 and watch and see how much traffic goes through there. And it's really, I don't
You
think
can sit
people
along
are
it.
aware how much there is there.
There are
I've tried to
openings,
get to the library, I am aware.
there are openings on the traffic and sidewalk committee, maybe.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's just what I wanted, I've done that
Can I say
committees.
something? I think again, we're all concerned because the focus already is so much on Brooks School, rather than all these other possibilities. And in this description of what the group is trying to do, you say, we're talking about Regis East, would involve approximately 80 units, and so on, so on. This development could be built with the existing septic system, but the challenges are limiting. The challenges are limiting the impact on the neighborhood. And we just haven't heard anything about our concern about that.
Well, if I
The
may,
neighborhood.
one of the things that Mark and I did this past weekend, we walked around Maple Street and Wellesley Street and took
It's
photographs.
Maple Road, by the
Yeah,
way.
Maple Road, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law bought the house antique at the top about 20 years ago.
Well,
You know
it's
that.
Maple Road.
So we walked around, we took photographs, took videos, we sent this to the architects. They're going to be developing perspectives and an aerial view of what the test fit, again, it's a test fit, will look like from these different areas.
What do you mean by test fit?
It's the same boxes you're seeing on the plan with green shrubbery. All it's saying is, this is the size of the footprint, this is where it could go, you can see how much setback and what it looks like. Other than that, nothing has been designed. So using that same kind of a massing box, basically say, okay, we're now at the intersection, this is what your view is going to be like. We also took it from as far up Maple Road as we could go before we got to the trees, and took that same view down that way.
But you're
You
talking
know all
about
the leaves fall off the trees too,
I
right?
know, but I couldn't shake it
But you're
that hard.
talking
so-
about, the view as you drive down
Yep.
School Street. Okay, you're not talking about any view of people who live there, of the residents who live there. They're gonna be looking out windows at a 4-story new building behind.
No.
And the lights for parking, you've got 120 parking spaces on this plan. You have 3 4-story buildings.
I don't believe.
Do you have any idea what that traffic is
Looking
like?
Well,
down.
okay, we're trying to answer.
It's different.
One of the things about the 150,000 is to answer these questions. We don't know, we need to
don't
go through all of this, and that's why we need the money to have somebody check it out and take a look. I would also, if I may, I would also suggest that we take a look at the list of other properties in town we are considering, because that's a question I keep hearing again and again from the audience. So is it possible we move on to that?
I had one other question just about the site, when they're doing their feasibility and all of that. When they were trying to figure out the roads and the traffic around the Case campus with the new field school, there was a lot of emphasis on sight lines, and you couldn't do things with the roads because you couldn't see. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I have no idea, but I just have a hard time imagining getting a road up onto Maple and still having sight lines from the cars that are coming in from School Street and cars that are coming down and the steepness of that hill.
Yeah.
And I just don't really understand how that would work.
Yeah, you complained about the developers taking out trees, and I think the consequence of this will be leaving Maple with no maple trees.
They're just all newly
I'm
planted.
not sure
all
how
newly
viable
planted.
that second access is anymore. We've had further discussion. As I say, as we say, it's a process.
Talking about going down the building.
Right.
Is that correct too, that the septic would go across and under the new soccer field and out that lane? Is that the?
No, not necessarily. We understand that the soccer field has a lot of peat and is very wet and probably will not accept the leaching field, so that's not part of the plan. That was a part of the discussion. Right? Again, this is where it's a process. We put a lot of things on the table to see what our options may be on this site and a lot of other sites. And we're just trying to develop that, and so that's not in the plan at this point in time.
So
We
right
don't
now,
expect
though,
that.
the Brooks School's septic is at capacity, because I think they were thinking about adding 3 more units there, and that can't even accommodate 3 more units.
Well, that's not true.
Or it's right at the edge.
We could add
Or
6
you-
units on building C without changing the septic.
Without changing.
But that is,
Yeah,
That's
so
about
that sounds interesting. And if you went further than that, it would have to be a waste treatment plant,
Mhm.
similar to the structure that's at the Wells, at the middle school, high school intersection there. So it is a big, it's another building,
Yes.
another structure.
Right.
And that's part of what we're potentially going to be asking for money for the study, to see what that looks like.
And
Minimize
You
the
could-
impact.
You could drive down for free.
No,
Look at it.
one of the things is that
And
20
if you think many of us have not, you're mistaken.
You know, I'm sorry,
Please.
that was really, but
We're all working pretty hard, and a very tough task, to try to cite 250 building, housing units in this town, is no easy task, so we're all working very hard.
I do appreciate that.
One thing I also want to point out about that penthouse for septic.
All right,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just wanted to point out that the penthouse is 20 years old, and our initial, research is showing that you can go with a smaller head house, which is the building itself can be smaller. But this is what we need to do the feasibility study for.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to kind of take over this meeting, this will probably be my last question, but a couple things. I think, just speaking for myself, but potentially the audience here, we would feel much better about this study if this study included more options. You're presenting one option and you're going all in with that one option. Like, let's diversify our options a little bit. Something to think about that I hope you would consider. The other thing I'm trying to do is kind of connect the dots on some timelines here. So everyone also talks about what's the rush? Why are we forcing our way through this so quickly? So I was hoping you could speak a little bit about meeting the safe harbor, and what meeting the safe harbor means in terms of other 40B developments potentially not happening. And that specifically speaks to 255 Merriam. So could someone speak to that, please?
yeah, it speaks to both, I think, 255 and 269 North. Because they both.
So you're trying to meet safe harbor by a certain date so that those 2 projects don't happen?
We don't know what the actual timing is for those projects. They have not submitted for comprehensive permit. What we're trying to do is move this ahead very quickly because we know they're there, and they're just looming over us. The way this works is once the HPP is basically finished by this committee, it goes to the selectmen and the planning board for their acceptance and approval. Once the planning board and the selectmen approve it, and the intention of the selectmen and the planning board is to have public hearings on it also, to make sure that they get the support of the town as a comprehensive program. Once they approve it, it goes to the state, DHCD. DHCD has 60 days, 90 days to review and approve or accept our plan.
Or reject.
Pardon me?
Or reject.
Right. Once they make a determination, then we need to move the first project ahead up to comprehensive permit in order to get the plans certified. Now, that's going to take a number of months once we get it could take a number of months once we get DHCD approval to finish plans for a comprehensive permit. Once that's done and we file for the comprehensive permit, that's the only time we get safe harbor.
What's that time?
What's that time?
With the 90-day DHCD, we have no control. They could take 5 days, they could take 8 to 9 days. So I mean, what we're trying to do is get the plan finished it'll be after town meeting, sometime toward the end of the year, and then get it to the selectmen so they have a chance to look at it.
But last time you said at the meeting, I have it on tape, that you need it by February 24. Why?
That's, we've self-imposed our own deadline just to give ourselves a deadline, because inevitably, a lot of people, if you don't have a deadline, you don't have a tendency to get the work done. I mean, I see Mario nodding his head. We deal with deadlines every day, right? I mean, that's the only way you can really push through things. So that's kind of the imposed deadline.
I see.
It's not cast in stone, but it's something that we've decided that we are trying to, with a comprehensive permit for the first project. And it's not as though we're not going to study and think about the other projects. I mean, we're going to give due consideration, serious consideration to all of them. As I said, we had to put something into the warrant a month and a half ago, and it had to say something. We couldn't just say $150,000 just to study stuff. So unfortunately, for you folks that are neighbors, it came as kind of a lightning rod for you, but it's a decision we had to make and we move forward on that behalf.
And can that be changed or altered before
Yes.
submission?
Yeah, it can be altered as late as on the floor, if we decide to alter on the floor. It's not in the plan right now, but I mean, it.
At least
yeah.
consider that.
Yeah, I think, I must say, as one member of this committee, I think it's a good idea to think about expanding this. That maybe we take one a little further forward, but to do more in parallel. It just,
We can do
it
that.
makes it, I think it's a good idea. And we, as it happens, I do serve on the Board of Selectmen, and we haven't adopted the warrant, yeah.
Shock.
I am too.
Well, you closed it 6 weeks ago or something, didn't you?
No, we did not. We haven't closed, we won't close it till our next meeting.
So you haven't voted on the warrant yet?
Right,
No.
so,
That- I
but
think it
I
makes sense.
think it does make sense to say, let's
Open it up to
get
at least one
funds.
more.
Yeah, we've gotta, I mean, because it does look like, okay, this train is leaving the station and it's
Yeah.
only going on this track, and that's
Yeah,
misleading.
it's really bad.
I also think we want to emphasize that part of the feasibility is to uncover all these things, because some of the things are going to be applicable to any site. Like, what does it mean to have this density next to us? What should we be thinking about in terms of traffic, and how is it affecting neighbors? And what are the key issues? Can we plant trees that will help, or is that not it? What are the issues exactly? Because we aren't talking about a 4-story building. We aren't going to violate our zoning bylaws, which have a 37.5 foot. 37-foot peak of the roof, as Mario knows better than I. So, we're gonna try to figure out in this feasibility all the things. Septic, and although it will be on this specific site, it will also hopefully give us information, both applicable to this site in particular, but applicable in general. What are the things we have to worry about?
I know that there are a lot of people here that are concerned about Brooks School. At our last meeting, which was last week, we had more people than this here, really upset about the Gale Road ball field, which was one of the places where we were looking. And so, you're not alone. I think you feel, it seems to be that you're saying that's our only focus. It's not.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but I think it speaks volumes that nobody from Gale Road is here, because they're at ease now, knowing that you guys are all behind the Brooks School property.
And that's completely.
It was in the paper.
That's wrong. Can I?
Play the videotape.
Can we please do this? Yeah, because.
I prepared this, we prepared this to try to put everybody's thoughts in one place about how to get to a.
We haven't seen it, by the way.
No, you haven't. A reasonable list. It's something we've been distilling for quite a long while.
But we haven't seen this document.
Oh, yes, I do. I'm sorry.
This is
Everybody have one?
posted as a handout with meeting notes.
The idea here is that in order for us to take a look at what our opportunities are and where we could potentially put housing, we filtered through all the town-owned land and eliminated land that has certain specific issues with it, making it either, and I'll read from the list, if it's conservation land, if it's parkland, if it's wetland, town forest, town-owned property that already is occupied by, too many buildings on a tiny site like the South Street Fire Station. We've looked at all these pieces of property. The list, do you remember how many,
7, I thought.
how many total number were?
196.
196 parcels of land. We prepared a fact sheet also. I didn't make multiple copies of this, but this is a fact sheet that I'd like to get folks to look at so we can load it up on the
I think it's
website.
actually better.
All it does is identify
Are those
how we-
copies for us? or-
how we looked at it
Not yet.
and how we
Two.
filtered it
You have to look at it and approve it.
to
first.
try to make decisions about what we even could look at. And with 192 pieces of land to look at to begin with, it took time to get through this. So,
This one is actually easier to read, I think, too.
this one here?
I think so.
Yeah, we only made a small amount of copies. Anyhow,
I can give mine up if somebody doesn't
there
need
is,
it.
there is a sheet here.
You can share.
There ends up out of 192, 7 pieces of land that we need to give, we as the HPP steering committee need to give serious consideration for siting housing. So on this list, and we do have only a couple of copies, I'm sorry, I do have a more extensive list here, which has the 7 copies and has site plans, mini site plans attached to each one, which I'm just passing out, and as I said, the committee really has not seen these.
Can you want me to pass them out?
Can we look at
So
them?
can you put one in the library so we can take it at the library?
We're all looking at it for the first time,
We're all
so that's why
looking
we
at
need
it
to
for the
get
first time.
feedback
Just-
from the committee.
Like I said, it takes time to put things together. We're just trying to get everything out to everybody. With the idea that no matter what neighborhood it goes in, it's going to impact somebody in the town. We understand that. And we're trying to be as sensitive to that as we possibly can. So if we look in the column on the sheets that you have that says study, which is the third column from the right-hand side, there are 7 circled lines that say yes. And this is our work basket, those of us who have put some time into this and not all figured it out. These are the 7 sites that appear to us to be the most viable to accept housing. Now, we've taken sites off that are less than 5 acres because from an economic standpoint, to pick a single lot someplace and try to build a single house is a very difficult economic performance, especially if that one single house has to be affordable. So our idea is to be able to put up multiple houses, and it doesn't mean that they'd be inappropriate for the neighborhood. So if we wanted to reference some little studies that we've done about different types of housing in town, there are houses off Wild Street that were the old, workers' houses for the organ factory. And if in fact we decide there's a piece of land up there, it may be that they are houses that are similar to that, which would make much more sense both from an economic and size standpoint, from affordable housing, and would be appropriate for the neighborhood. So we're trying to take into consideration those different areas, but again, we've had to go through and basically filter the list of 192 to get to something. So we have gone to 7. And those include the Cat Rock, the community gardens, and we haven't discussed about, as a group, we haven't discussed about throwing them out or not throwing them out. This is just the initial refinement of this.
I hadn't even seen this list before.
No, it just,
Not to mention
No.
the schematics here.
Yeah,
Well-
the schematics, I don't agree with at all.
So these are the ones they showed us.
yeah, these are the ones that
I know,
but-
but they're not but that doesn't reflect the comments that we all made.
No, these are
Not at
all
all.
preliminary comments.
We
So,
were appalled.
Cat Rock, community gardens, 0 Wellesley Street, between the corner of Wellesley and 20. That is small, over 3 acres, but that's a vacant piece of land. 44 School Street, which is Brook Apartments.
Al, you're shaking your head.
Absolutely. I don't agree with Zero Wellesley at all. It's right at the most,
Right,
the
well,
busiest intersection of the town.
Yeah,
I
and that's
said
why-
that 2 meetings ago.
Yeah, and that's why we need to go through this list
Okay.
as a group and get rid of these things for our own purposes, but again, it's another refinement, which is
Well,
fine.
let's go through the list. I mean, Jim's reading them, we'll take a look at what the list is, and we'll take off the ones that don't work. But these were the last ones we had prior, so let's go through and vote them.
So we don't want to limit the number of alternatives any more than we have to. Right? We want to keep some options open.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that there's, okay. But I do have, the planning board does have to agree with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone on the
Do you want to
planning
start?
I might know somebody on the planning board.
Do you want to start and basically
Hey, you wanna
define the
start?
list?
Well,
Then-
I think Lot 9 is a reasonable possibility, but I don't
Okay.
think 22 units on Lot 9 is a reasonable
I don't
possibility.
know where we see 22.
Right there.
No, that's,
And we said that, we had,
That's the projection of Union Studios, just saying how many.
I know, but it's right
possible-
here in,
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think this is also how
yep, so let's take, so,
people can misunderstand what we're trying to do. If this comes out with Weston Housing Production Plan name on it, and we don't agree with this,
Right.
I'm very uncomfortable.
I am too, very, I
All
don't
right,
know,
well,
who put it together?
well, we were all uncomfortable with this Brook School.
Yeah. We weren't enthusiastic about this plan for Brook School either.
Yeah, that wasn't, that's not the latest
It
plan.
might be helpful if
It's the
people
one that
listen to the
we've got in the
discussion that's
back.
going on at the table, because as we handed that out to you, you can tell that the committee hasn't vetted this yet,
We
so
haven't seen
we're
it.
vetting it at the same time you're vetting it, so it might be helpful before you go down one road, that you hear the road we're trying to figure out. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll go ahead.
No, I mean, we did talk about the two existing houses on the case land as possible units. What, in the schoolhouse maybe 1 unit, and in the
Yep,
Grant house maybe 2 with an addition on the back.
yep.
That's not on here.
no,
So
that-
these are not the current drawings from,
Maybe we should separate the drawings from the spreadsheet.
so these are not the current drawings. Mark, do you know if they are, or are these old drawings, or is there something else we should be?
I haven't seen any recent drawings, so I'm assuming these are old. Are they not dated?
Well, the date is September 17th.
Oh, these are the old ones.
the old ones.
Yes.
Okay, so the drawings, everybody rip up the drawings.
Separate.
They're the old ones.
So why aren't we using the drawings that we had on the presentation that I made 2 months ago?
Got me.
Some of those were not.
You all had that presentation, I know you did.
Yeah.
So why didn't you use those instead of creating new ones?
Well, to us, we needed to have a list that we could put something.
Well, your list has 4 of the 6 units that I had in that presentation.
Okay?
And the other 2 are,
Can we go through one by one and decide then if they stay on the list or if we remove them from the list?
It's not a complete list.
Well, let's do one thing, let's get rid of the drawings, okay? And let's concentrate on the list. Yep.
Get rid of the drawing.
Go to the list, what is missing here, Jack?
the only ones that are missing are the 2 Wellesley Street buildings that were very small add-on units, and the golf course.
The golf course is parkway.
We can't do that.
No, but I understand that, but remember, at the time that I made that presentation, we didn't know that.
Correct.
Right,
So now we do, so it's appropriate for those things to not be on there. So what we've added is this 0 Wellesley Street, which was, I thought we had agreed we weren't going to pursue.
Right.
And
Do we all agree?
you've added the community gardens, which certainly seems like a viable one, but we had never discussed. So the only thing that's new here is the community garden.
Okay, so
Can
We haven't discussed it. I mean,
Can we
there's some-
start with 0 Wellesley?
yeah, can we start with
Can I
0
make a
Wellesley?
motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not use Zero Wellesley as a potential site, because it's too small anyway.
Too small for what?
Well, right now, we're trying to consider larger pieces of property.
Second.
Okay, Al seconded.
Any further discussion?
Well, it's almost 3 times as big as 269 North Ave.
We don't like that.
Yeah, but it is what is in fact the most dangerous intersection right now.
That's true.
So, setting aside the size, I think the location on Wellesley by the 20 bypass is just untenable. So that criteria alone.
Yeah, that, according to the police reports, is our most dangerous intersection.
For sure.
Okay, so are we having a vote on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody all set, ready to vote?
Yep.
So I'd like to just say, we're not pursuing it now as part of this
Right.
plan.
Right, okay.
It's not that it can never be anything.
So it's
Okay,
not
we'll
being-
amend the
this will be
motion that way.
As part of the HPP, or just, no, it's your preference?
Yeah, that's what I thought she had moved, but
Do not consider Zero Wellesley Street now for the current HPP.
Right. That's why it's got a no on it, right?
So we had a vote?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. So that's all there is.
Okay,
Okay,
the next one, which one are we going with next?
so you want to go with Dragonton, Cat Rock?
Yep.
Do we believe we should be?
So my
looking at the
question is for
options?
Drabington. Are you going to kill that
We're
forest?
still in conversation here. Sorry.
Absolutely.
It's a prime piece to look at.
With all of the traffic issues that are associated with every other piece of land that we've got on here.
Can you help me since I walked that
Pardon?
probably 4 times a week? I'm having difficulty envisioning where conservation land leaves off and where municipal land.
Do you know where the road is that comes off Lexington Street? Where there's a sort of a road that they put in to do the house.
Access.
I'm sorry,
Here.
right, next page.
Here's
Behind that?
Southbrook.
It's Cat Rock.
It's south of the
The-
access.
Ball
That's the
field.
road.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm not coming off
Here's
of the long
Drabington.
field. Can't read anything. Drabington's over
Here's
here.
Drabington, so you're coming this way. So basically halfway down the stream is all the conservation we can't touch, don't want to touch.
The
This is
non-pochade
Yep,
part is not conservation land.
So the rest of this is
Yes.
conservation.
That's correct. That's municipal purpose
Slope
land.
comes up quite a bit here.
So it's
This
right
is
off the
fairly
Malone,
level.
right off the Malone ball field.
Exactly.
To the
Yes.
right over the bridge down here
Yep.
is.
Which is
Okay,
somewhere
thank
here,
you.
that's a ball field. Yep.
And shore the water tank.
Yeah.
Water tank somewhere
The water tank's up
there.
here. Yeah, all right, thank you.
So that's all municipal land. So did I hear a motion for leaving this on as a
Do you want
potential?
more discussion?
So, I'll move it.
Well, I would just note that all of these are going to have challenges. I've had,
Gosh, yes.
Absolutely.
I organize my hate mail now according to the site. And there's the Cat Rock. I haven't, you guys are a little slow on your hate mail to me. But maybe it's my email address, but I'll put it in the, these are all hard. And that we're studying them doesn't mean that we're going forward with anything. And it's just, we're seeing if we can get a plan together, and maybe we can.
And we have to basically highlight opportunities. It's an opportunity.
We have to get the information to ultimately say either no, nothing can go there, or yes with these constraints. And we don't have any information on any of these to do that.
Right, and it might be that the topography is just too difficult and it's not economically feasible. There are lots of ifs.
Lot of ifs, yeah.
Well,
But it's something that we
can I also just say this?
Yes.
That if we're looking at, for example, the Broken Stone site, the Boston property site. Boston Properties proposes, say, something in the neighborhood of 150 units in the back 40. Now, remember, the goal is roughly 250 units.
22, yeah.
So, and we put 40 or so on, and we put 40 or so on, say, the Regis East land, just to pull a couple of rabbits out of hats. Now we're at 190 out of the 250 units. You know, if we have scattered site houses elsewhere, we may not ever get to any of these because we'll be over the finish line for the safe harbor. And so, just because we're saying they're worthy of taking a look at doesn't mean that anything's ever going to happen to them. We could get over the finish line without actually having to impact the neighborhoods in the way I think people are afraid that we're
I thought the
thinking about.
calendar was a major issue here. You had to do something, you had to get on the
Well, you
calendar.
need to get started. You need to, they require you to have targets by year for the first 5 years. So we need to identify goals per year for the first 5 years. And so that's what we're trying to do, is identify what those goals are. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily required to do that. It just means that you set those goals and then you see whether you can reach them or whether you need to establish other goals. So we're not casting anything in concrete. We're just beginning to establish goals. And again, if we find a couple of sites where we can almost get to the finish line, then we're not talking about big developments all over town. I think it's important to recognize that. We're not focusing on putting the maximum number of units every single place a tree is growing.
But we have to show good faith to work toward the goal.
Right.
As far as the HCD is concerned, if we can just get an HPP approved without any certification, that's a big step. The next big step is to get it certified. But right now, they look at us and they basically say, you haven't done anything in 42 years. And that's not a good thing.
Yes.
I wanted to ask on this, are you not considering any property that the town does not own? In other words, this is all town-owned land. Have you discounted purchasing any land?
I just mentioned two.
We're just talking about buying.
Yeah, because they were talking about the case land, that's what I'm wondering about.
Oh, well, the case land, there are parcels on the case land that are possibilities. I mean, the existing buildings on the case land, the two houses, what is the town gonna use those two houses for? Maybe there are two houses that are already there that the town could make part of its affordable housing inventory. They're already there. So that's a possibility. It's just, again, we're looking at possibilities. But if we can almost get to the finish line, 2 or 3 houses here and there begin to make sense. But we have to get there first.
On the topic of non-town land, I'm just curious, has anyone ever reached out to the Jesuits about the Campion Center? And is there,
That's not on here either.
Is there more that we could do, that the town can do to provide incentives for Boston Properties and Biogen in terms of train stations, traffic access, tax breaks, anything to make that, a win-win?
It would be a lot better than killing Cat Rock. That
Yes.
much I can tell you.
And that's why we've opened the door to start the discussion with them. And we talked last week about, keeping the momentum going to find out what it is they need to do to move those forward. To a number of us, and obviously it's gonna go out on the media, if we can get a good plan together and have it approved and certified, and we work with Biogen in parallel, and they come through and put up 150 units on their dime, I think that's a win-win situation. I mean, that's a home run. That's what a lot of us are looking to do, to try to move this forward so we can get safe harbor and give us a little bit of breathing room to work with these folks.
But at the
None
same
of
time,
us-
you're gonna have to start building,
No.
you're gonna start building a brick school.
No,
Huh, no.
in order to get safe harbor, we have to have a comprehensive permit. All that means is we have approval to move ahead to develop plans to actually build. They're not final plans.
It's not even.
We'd have to go back to town meeting to get approval to spend the
But
money.
aren't you developing plans? I don't understand. You have an approval to develop plans? Is that what it is?
They're preliminary plans that are required to file for comprehensive permit. They're not buildable. You can't build by those
I
plans.
understand, but once they give you an approval, they give you an approval for what? To start building something?
They give us, no.
And don't you have to start building within a certain amount of time, or the plan isn't valid anymore?
We don't, I'm not sure there's a real timeline. It's probably within a year. Because I think they update
No, I
that.
think
No, you gotta
comprehensive
get a building
permit's 2
permit,
years.
then you can have
And
7
then-
years to build it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
only just,
Well,
you're
for
going
the
to show
permit, I think
progress.
it's 7 years.
2 years.
No, it's
7
2
years of
years.
building permit? Right.
Two
We have
years
to go
by
back to
plan.
town meeting to get approved to go, to get the money for final plans to build it.
Well, if
We just
the private developer is doing it, you don't need an approval
That's
of the
correct.
town.
That's correct.
But you also don't get our vote. You can just assign any land.
No,
If the
we can't
private
just- no.
developer is
Yeah.
doing it, you don't need the approval for the money.
I don't think we
But
should
we
be
can't
having
go
this
into a
right.
contract with a private developer without the town approving it.
Jim.
So, I mean,
Yeah, I know we can't.
there are,
Can we just circle back to this, just to pick up on what this gentleman said? Let's consider adding Campion and St. John's to the list.
Yes.
Yeah, that's-
Yes,
That's
we
the
already talked
reason.
about it.
Well, we kept having piecemeal lists, and that's one of the reasons I
Yeah,
just
so
said,
let's
let's
put-
start here and let's just
Are folks
populate
okay with
this.
this?
yeah,
One more question on other
Right,
alternatives.
but we ought to put them under the category of
they should be
That-
potential partners.
They're not
potential
town-owned
partners
land.
or private,
Yes.
Yeah,
private
right,
land.
because it says town-owned land only, this one.
Gotcha.
Sorry, just maybe a stupid question about other alternatives. Is it possible to put housing on any school land that could be made as affordable housing for teachers?
Well,
You know,
we've-
bus barn area,
That's a
the
segue.
field
When I was
school
just-
stuff that was clear.
One of the parcels that we talked about before, and for some reason that's not on the list here, is part of the back 40, the Pine Woods back 40 on the Case land. Which
Yeah.
actually, the abutter for that is Woodland School and the cemetery.
Yep.
You could
We're gonna
put-
get all the people from the cemetery coming in.
But not until Halloween. But we thought maybe we could put, 12, 15 units there in a place that where the impact would be low. There are problems with it. First of all, it's got some contamination. Second of all, it's got topographical issues. But,
Psychological issues.
well, they'd all be eradicated. But, again, these are all sort of things that we've talked about. I mean, I don't know why they're not appearing on the list, but we've talked about them.
Well,
And-
because you have to put down the list to figure out what you have and
That's
forgotten.
exactly
Right, so let's add,
This
let's
is a
add
working
parcel
group
9,
here,
right?
guys.
I think the
Well,
town
lot
would be
nine's
very
already on
supportive
here.
of
Lot
housing.
nine is
Lot nine's on here, but the Pine Woods
You
back
want to do
40 is not
Pine
on
Woods?
here.
Okay, I thought that was being held for a school, no?
That's about 12 acres, and the
Okay.
school site, if you sort of think of the size of the Woodland School or any of our
Yeah.
schools there, we actually had a plan for it, and it took only about 4 of those acres.
Right.
Okay,
There's
so.
room.
Okay, good. That's
So-
why we're a working group.
Good, so.
We need to, I'm sorry, but I need to go back, other things on this list that we need to take off this list as we see it here tonight, because we just don't believe there's any viability.
So you talked about Cherry Brook ball field
Yes.
and conflicts with current use.
Yes.
No space.
I'm curious why Cherry Brook that's too small to maintain the ball field, but the same issue isn't noted for
Soccer
Brook School,
field.
soccer fields and tennis courts.
One of the reasons is because we've already talked to the Recreation Commission about the use of that field at the Brook School Apartments. And we've decided that where there's only 5 acres of land, and it does have an existing it does have a ball field and a tennis court, that we decided it just didn't make a lot of sense for us to pursue that.
Well, how about the ball field in
tennis
Remington
courts.
Way, and then the whole park, what are we gonna do with the forest? And, how is that, environmentally, all those impacts, are they studied?
Again, part of this is we're going to be studying those. And the other part of it is, we can't promote a site that's gonna have a negative environmental impact, period. We won't do that. So it needs to be studied. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you which tree may have to be removed. That's part of what we're doing, is we're trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood we're in and sensitive to all of our zoning bylaws. So, I have land sake on here, which we've talked about, neighborhood school apartments. I have the Gale Road ball field, with the idea that that land is large enough so that could support housing and not disturb the ball field. It's a 25-acre lot, and the ball field is about 3 acres.
Should have been
So-
here last time.
I was here last time.
There you go.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, you know, and that's the
We
reason.
better call up our jail.
Oh, there you go, we're gonna bigger
Get
room.
them
Well,
back.
that's the other reason
We'll have
for
to have
having
bigger
this
room.
They
out
all went home
tonight,
happy.
is that.
Why didn't
No,
they go?
because I think they understood that it has to be part of the study, and that the studies are going to try to get the kind of input that we're getting tonight from the neighbors to say, can something happen here? We're all gonna have to make some compromises, and we're gonna have to say, is there some way to do this? And it may be, hopefully, there is some way we can look at it, and it may be, we can't get a plan together and we can't get any sites, but I think.
Well, is it fair to say that that what's going to be discussed, or what's going to be voted on at town meeting for 150, whatever the number is, will have, among others, the Brooks School apartment plan, but others as well? I mean, is that going to be the only thing on the warrant, or whatever it's called, or are there going to be
No, we
a
just
number of
decided that
properties?
we're gonna expand it and look at
So-
a number of other
It's
parts.
called an article, it will be an article on the warrant, it's all the articles together. So it will be an article, and I said that I thought we should add, but we have to run to CPC right away to say, you know, this looks like we're going down only one direction, and we need to gather more information
Right.
on other sites as well, so.
I understand that Brooks School is an attractive site for some reasons, and, you know, they're good neighbors that we like. I think a plan that was in proportion and didn't take out the soccer field and the tennis courts, and given that you've already done multiple developments there, I think the neighborhood would be supportive of something that wasn't over the top, but this seems over the top.
Well, and I think you'll find Al and I agree that the plan that you saw is over the top.
Absolutely.
And one of the things we've talked about with I've talked about with members of the Recreation Commission is that one of the issues on the soccer field is the parking. And then people are always on Maple Road.
We don't mind that, it's all right.
I know.
Better than what it could be.
And it's a little bit of a, and then some of this, so, you know, if that field is needed as part of the mix of the fields, and we somehow have a plan that makes sense, that disrupts the use of that field, it has to be replaced somewhere. And a more logical place is where there's already existing parking, like in either of our schools, or any of our schools, where you also have easier multiple use of the fields. So.
But that's one of the reasons we've engaged with the Recreation Commission, because they have a field use study subgroup that meets on a fairly regular basis right now to try to manage the assets that they do have already. In our first discussion with them, we discovered that they had one field that was not used at all last year. So that's a field that's going, they just didn't need it. So it's like,
Which field?
it happened to be Dravington. I don't know why they selected it. That was recreation. But so we're sitting with them on a fairly regular basis, so they can understand what we're proposing, because when somebody mentioned Gale Road and Bird Field, a lot of the responses were, we're gonna lose the field, and that was never our intent. Our intent is to find a way to coexist with a field if that's the case. So, again, we're gonna be continuing to work with them to find out what the best use of all the assets in the town are.
Well, on Dravington, it's the trails behind the field that are valuable, not the field. But the trails are invaluable to, you know, to the town. Everybody walks there. This is our park. You can't take that away.
We're not taking it away.
Well, you will if you're going to start building there.
Okay. Are there any others that we should remove from the 7? So we decided to add
We're adding right now Camping Center, St. John's Seminary, Pine Woods. And that's the only three I have right now.
Broken Stone, Regis College.
Oh, sorry, Regis College. All right, those are in the private developer.
Well, all of those are in St. John.
Right, I know, except for
And the
Pine Woods.
Pine Woods back 40.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility behind the high school or at the field?
You know, I think the bus barn, well,
We haven't
Because
talked about.
didn't we do the public works thing to,
yeah,
wasn't
but
that
there's,
supposed to take buses out of the bus barn?
no, well, it takes it out of the barn because the repairs are done, but it doesn't provide the parking for the buses.
Yeah,
So,
right. That, we sent out a couple of feelers to find out what we need to do to look at that, because that is on, that should be on this list, because it's one of those things we are investigating. Again, I did this on purpose to get everybody to react to this on the committee, so we can move forward, because everybody has their own ideas, we really haven't put down a comprehensive list, so.
Haven't you reached out to the school committee and there's a conversation that has to be had with them?
Yeah, with them first.
Yeah.
There are
Well, I
certain.
put it on there for investigation, so
Yeah.
it doesn't get forgotten.
No, and that's,
Yeah,
I appreciate that, because like I said, we actually walked out a couple days ago.
The bus barn?
Yeah. Bus barn, middle school, high school, we're waiting for the police to show up, saying, there's you folks doing one.
Was there something with Leo J. Martin? Was that on the list?
Yes, Leo J. Martin is a consideration because the town owns 19 acres of that property. As you're driving south, on the right-hand side, as you're driving south, most of that land is town of Weston land. The issue is, it was left to the town of Weston. The deed restriction was that it was going to be reserved for the parkland use only for 10,000 years. So we've got to wait.
We gotta wait to
It's in the deed.
10,000 years of the deed.
Yes, I've actually read the document, we have the document here, so.
It's a handwritten document.
That's long range.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a long range
I don't
plan.
I don't
It is
think
long
we
range
could do
plan.
that.
So that was under consideration, but that was the reason that one came off.
And is Campion worth approaching?
Yes.
They were approached in a group, but
Sorry.
we're going to continue to knock on their door and talk to them personally.
Yeah, we have to keep pushing that. That's-
10,000 years?
Is there anything around the
Yeah,
fields
like
underneath the
Oliver,
Birchard
right?
Park?
Around the what?
He's made
Are there
some
any,
more
is there any spots by the Birchard
the
fields and tennis courts there?
No, everything, anything of any significance is conservation.
Conservation, yes, Orchard.
Yeah, and there is land that's classified a little bit differently on the GIS system. Chapter 97, I checked with our Conservation Commission agent today, Chapter 97 protects a lot of land. And it can be listed as a number of things, and some of it was even listed as recreation, but it's actually protected under Chapter 97. The ones that are on this list are not protected by Chapter 97, which is conservation land, parkland, cemeteries, a number of types of properties.
It's almost impossible to use conservation land unless you
The
go
land-
an act of the legislature.
Like an act of God.
The land off of Church Street, sort of opposite the train station, across Church Street from the
Yes.
parking
Yes.
space
Yes.
there?
Yes.
What land is that? Is that
It's
town
very
or
wet.
conservation?
It's either wetland or conservation land, one of the two.
There's
Yeah, this
wetlands.
is
Oh, up toward the
25
It's a
to
former
30
golf
acres.
course, right? I mean,
Golf course, yeah.
is that not available to be right on the train tracks?
On the, is it on the west side of Church Street?
Going toward the Red Barn, you mean?
Yeah, when you pass the
Yeah.
red,
Oh,
the
that's
red
right.
barn on your left,
On the
but the
Webster
field
Road
after
side, that was
That's
golf
Your
course.
original golf
Oh,
course.
really?
Yeah,
That's all conservation land. By the
Or
Cobra
all
Barn.
of them.
all up through there.
Yeah, that's all
And
conservation.
down in the field, as you get closer to the tracks, it floods.
Oh, it's all wet
Fairly
down there,
frequently.
and even wet behind the parking lot at the train station too. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll want to drive off the edge of the parking lot, you'll never get out of it. So, But
A
that
lot
is
of us-
conservation.
So the other private land, I think, we had talked about was, as you go down the Dunker Landfill Road, sand and gravel, it's private.
Joe Leone's
I don't know if it's.
operation.
Joe Leone's, yeah.
Yes, that's,
But that's not town property, right?
no,
No?
Some of it is.
So it goes into is it?
Some is,
Okay.
yeah.
1 acre.
What do you want to call it, what that's called then? Should I use it
A question on Miriam Street, how much thought goes into Miriam Street, or was that, it was just sort of passed over fast?
It's just one of those things we have to look at.
Okay.
And one of the things we're also trying not to do is put every piece of additional housing in one location. And if we put it on Miriam Street, the issue is we have Miriam Village right next door and Jericho's right down the street, so we're pretty loaded there. It's difficult. I'm not saying that, and I'm saying it's not easy, it's all contiguous with something, so.
But the reason we're having this problem is because we're trying to put apartments and houses instead of not putting them. Nobody's putting them besides us. We're the only ones who are putting things. Nobody's attacking our town. We are attacking our town.
I hear what you say. With the 240Bs already submitted to the state.
Yeah, but we fight them off all the time. This is normal.
That's a risk that.
It's a risk to put all this stuff into, you're talking about Cat Rock. That's trails with trees that you don't want to take down.
I understand your concern.
So you are worried about some trees on North Avenue, but you're not worried about Cat Rock?
Jim, can I ask why these land areas are what they are? I mean, we're not talking about 62 acres on an acre. We're talking about 9 acres.
Well, that was just the default number in that case.
We're not talking about 16 acres of Brook School. We're talking about 5 or 6.
Well, that's just how much happens to the total land area.
Yeah, but it isn't very helpful.
It really isn't.
It isn't.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Those numbers.
thank you.
How do you want to determine what should be used?
Well, you've got to take all the wetland out, one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to find somebody in the
It's
GIS
not
who
just
can
raw
who
land.
can do that. If I remember correctly, this was pulled just from the assessor's map.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So-
This is from the assessment.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I get that from the conservation.
We just need to work on it.
Yep, we need to work on
But,
it.
I think everybody's added and subtracted what they believe is correct to make the list.
No, but the data, and now we need to work on the
I
data.
understand.
Yep.
The only thing I have scratched off is 0 Wilson Street. Everything else is as is, and we've added Pine Woods, St. John, Regis, and Camp.
Okay,
And 131, 133 Wellesley. Right?
30 and 131
I
Wellesley?
think 131, 133.
Well, okay.
The broken stone, right?
Yeah, we have that, yep. I have a box of
And the
property.
sand and gravel also done for
Yep, in the back. I may be high school, but that has to be talked to the school committee first.
Bus barn.
In that area, yeah.
I'm sorry, could I interrupt for 1 second? So I just want to compliment the kind of creative thinking that's happening in this meeting now and the collaborative nature that it's taken, I think shows that there are other ways of thinking about this and potentially other solutions for this. So I'm just still at a loss as to why we're going through and designating all of these municipal lots that clearly are a forced fit when we can partner with a private developer on private land and have the effect on that implementation be a fraction of everything that you're talking about right now. So why don't we allocate that money for feasibility to a partnership with private development and leave our municipal property as is? It just makes 0 sense to me.
I actually just asked Michael if some of the money could be used to subsidize, help a private developer study or analyze an opportunity, and he said no. And I'm not sure why he had to move, but yes, we thought of that as well.
We don't,
But I'll just add something else. We actually appreciate you coming here, not because we're anxious to be criticized, but because nobody's shown up for months. We started meeting in April. April, May, June, July, August, September, it's October.
Trying to get the word out.
7 months. So maybe shame on us for not knocking on people's door and saying, hey, aren't you coming to the meeting? But seriously, we do appreciate it, and we are sincere. We're all residents of the town. We're not descending from outer space here to create trouble.
I mean, I appreciate all the time. I know that it's probably not the most fun sitting up there hearing it all from us, but again, all these lots that we're going through and considering compared to some of those other private development options and land that's not municipal. I mean, call me crazy, but
The problem is.
That's
it's like
actually-
a night and day difference.
That actually
on
was the
time.
very first thing we talked about.
And what happened?
We need the property owner to exercise more than just a, I'll take a look at it, but to actually do some analysis. And
Correct.
whether they think that it's potential, or whether it's 5 years from now.
Or 10.
we don't
So
know.
let's
Yeah.
not rush and negotiate with them, because
Could
this
happen
is
if
just
not.
one of those things. Nobody's rushing us.
I think we've heard you say that many times. We've not failed to hear it. We don't agree that we're in a risk-free environment. We think that there are risks, and we have reason to believe that. And our interest is to protect the town so that it can work with developers in a constructive, friendly way to accomplish what the state is mandating us to provide. And to try to avoid being thrust into a position where we are being approached by hostile developers against whom we basically have really no legal defense, because the state will overrule the town.
I think we owe you a debt of gratitude for this whole
Yeah.
business. I think
Long way
it's
to
a
go.
good, but a good example is the evening of volunteerism in action. And it's just exactly what we need.
Well, the other part of what we've always said, and we've been saying this since April, since we started the meeting, no matter what these folks who are sitting here with me, no matter what they contribute a lot, no matter how bright they are, they don't have all the answers, none of us do. We've been looking to reach out to get information, to find out what may be a better way. And trust me, we've talked to the private developers, we've talked to those folks. We've pushed them as far as we could push them on the first step. We're just looking to keep moving that forward. So that's never been off our radar from day one. Broken Stone is one of those sites that we just thought would be a great opportunity for all of us. So as Mark said, we will continue to push for that. We'll continue to push in a number of different directions with the ultimate goal that if we can get folks to do this for us and we don't have to pony up our money, that'd be terrific. So, and I apologize if it seems like we're rushing this through, but as I said before, if we didn't have a deadline and we didn't do this, and we didn't start making these announcements, we'd never get done, or we wouldn't engage you until it was so late. It would be really not beneficial to everybody in the town. And we're looking to make this as easily, equitable across all areas of the town as we possibly can, and as open as we can. None of the major discussions and none of the decisions that are made can be made out of this open meeting format. So it's not as though we talk to each other outside of this and make decisions and then come to the table and you can see how this list got the reaction that I put together. Because it had to be pushed, so that's what we have to do, and that's what we have to go through sometimes. But we can't make these decisions outside this room, so in case anybody wants any input, every 2 weeks, right now we're starting to, I think we're gonna meet every week from now until November. And then November 7th is gonna be a public forum where we're asking people, bring your ideas. Now that we've broken the ice and given you some of the basics about the issue that's before us, come with ideas, that's great. I mean, like I said, we don't have all the answers. We may think friends sometimes, but we don't.
One of
So-
the things we're trying to do is to break out into groups that will discuss each of the sites we're talking
Sites,
about,
potential.
pros and cons, things to consider, things to be wary of, things to be afraid of, so we can understand it better, and that way they're all out, no pun intended, on the table, and we can gather information from the town.
Yeah, we're gonna make it an interactive workshop.
It's gonna be
With
held in
all
the
the residents
auditorium
of
up in the town hall, so.
I mean, the selectmen have already told us if we can't get everybody to support it, they're not gonna sign it, so. So that's really what it comes down to, so we've got to make a decision moving forward. Yeah.
Will that be discussed at the town meeting? And if we are so in a very preliminary stage and with so many unknown factors and so many unfinished studies, I think it would be, and I don't know what you're thinking about that, but I would suppose that would be extremely early to discuss this in November. But maybe in May, if some of those background not decisions, but studies and projects a little bit more advanced. We're in a very preliminary stage in matters that are so dear to everybody's heart.
Okay, no, that,
Well, we need,
good comment.
unfortunately, we need the money to do the studies. That's
So-
a conundrum.
Anyway, we didn't get to the, I don't think we're gonna get much further tonight. Everybody agree with kind of,
Yeah.
done everything we?
I think we've really
Housing strategy
hit the high
comments.
points.
Yeah, Karen's not here. I think we need to refine the list, get this back in front of everybody, make sure we distill this properly, we have everything on there. And then we have to decide very quickly what we're going to be producing for the CPC presentation.
Who's doing that? Are you trying to do that?
I can do that. I don't know if Michael wanted to do it. He'd be the only other
Michael
person.
needs to be
that-
part of it as a selectman.
Yeah. So we can discuss that next week.
Yeah, probably better.
All right?
Yeah.
Motion.
Your motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Just everybody, please, because you saw what happened to this list, I really don't want people to, I don't want to really see this thing circulating around saying this is what we're doing, because we made so many comments on it.
Olga basically put it on the camera.
I would appreciate the fact
I
that-
put it on the camera because I usually put everything on the
Right,
camera.
but since, as you know, it's a draft, we would ask if you're still recording, that it's a draft in progress.
Yeah, that's, I think you said it all over during the meeting, yeah.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.